Fellow explorers, the end of an aviation era is upon us. The days of sitting next to a 300-pound pig in first class or sitting next to a peacock in economy are numbered. The Department of Transportation has enacted a new rule that takes effect on January 11th that essentially closes the emotional support animal loophole, no longer allowing all of these species of animals to come on board planes in the US. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this new rule. I'm going to tell you what the airlines are doing about it, but first, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. By the way, if this is your first time here, my name's Chris. This is Yellow Productions. I do travel guides that are fun, informative, entertaining, and let's go ahead and get right into it. Okay, so first starting with background, what is an emotional support animal? In the USA, an emotional support animal can be prescribed by a mental health professional for somebody to increase their mental health by having this animal around. Now, it's been historically pretty easy to get certified by a doctor to require a emotional support animal, and the laws and regulations of the US have not put any limit on what those species or types of animals are that can be emotional support animals. So many people were going to doctors, getting a note that says they need an emotional support animal, and then bringing their favorite animal on board planes without having to pay the pet fee or the check-in fee. And while I'm sure there are many people who legitimately need an emotional support animal, there are also many people who didn't because the rules were so lax, just so that they could get away from these fees or bring their pet on the cabin with them. In particular, the Department of Transportation states that the reasons why they enacted this new rule is because, one, there was an increase of complaints from people with legitimate service animals with legitimate disabilities. There had been a number of misbehavior events by emotional support animals, including biting other passengers and pooping on the plane, and disruptions caused by requests to transport unusual species on airlines. Now, a couple of other reasons that people would take advantage of this emotional support animal loophole is that many airlines impose a weight limit on pets that are carried on. Sometimes it's a limit of 20 pounds, so people who have larger animals, well, how are they going to bring it on? Well, if it's a 300-pound pig, then they claim it's an emotional support animal. I'm also sure there's many people who did not want to put their pets down in the cargo hold because that's not a place that probably anybody wants to be, and so they use this to be able to bring their pet on board the plane with them. Okay, so now let's talk specifically about the new rule that goes into effect on January 11th. The first thing the rule does is it clarifies the species of animal that can be considered service animals. In particular, it says the species of animals that are considered service animals on planes in the USA are dogs. Dogs and only dogs. The rule then goes on to say that they are dogs that have been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of a qualified individual with a disability, including a physical, sensory, psychiatric, intellectual, or other mental disability. The new rule also limits the number of service animals that somebody can bring on a plane. That number is now limited to 2 service animals per passenger. The new rule also allows carriers to enforce restrictions on where service animals can be on the plane, allowing carriers to enforce restrictions that service animals have to be either under the seat in front of the passenger or on the lap of the passenger. Okay, so now that we know all about the new rule, let's talk about what the airlines are doing about it. There's 2 airlines so far that have come out with their new policies. I'm sure others are going to follow. The first airline we'll talk about is American Airlines. American Airlines has said even though this rule goes into effect on January 11th, they're not going to enforce it until February 1st. So effective February 1st on American Airlines, only service animals as defined by this new rule will be able to travel in the cabin fee-free. All other animals will have to travel as a pet, which means that a $125 pet fee will have to be paid. If they're in the cabin, they'll have to be in a kennel, or they can be checked into the cargo hold. Now, many carriers and many flights are actually restricting pets checked in right now due to COVID-19 changes, so you'll want to check on the airline you're flying if they're still currently checking in pets. Now, travelers flying on American Airlines with a service animal will now need to file a new Department of Transportation form with the airline 48 hours before their flight. This form will attest to things like the animal's health, the animal's training, and also certify that if the flight is longer than 8 hours, that the animal will essentially poop not in the middle of the aisle and will poop someplace cleanly. Those forms filed with American Airlines, once they're approved, will be valid for up to a year. So if you have a service animal animal and you're traveling quite regularly, you'll only have to file this form once a year. Alaska Airlines announced similar changes to American Airlines, although their date for emotional support animals goes a little longer. They will allow emotional support animals through February 28th. That's provided that you've purchased your ticket before January 11th. Now, fellow explorers, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate if you hit that thumbs up button down below. First of all, it tells me that you enjoy this kind of content, so I keep making more travel news updates. It also lets YouTube know that you liked it, which is probably even more important, so that YouTube shares it with other people. If you hated this video, hit that thumbs down button twice. Well, as usual, I won't say goodbye because I'll see you in one of my other videos.